Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. This is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. And so we're about to launch into some of our talk. Guys, I'm so glad to be with you today. We're talking about something important, keys to a happy life. I've given lectures on aspects of this in the past. We're talking about some more aspects of this that we have not talked about, so I'm glad you're with us. Let's do a prayer, get us all on the same page, and then we'll launch into what we're doing. This is a live show. Our call-in number is 347-850-1647 if you have any questions or comments about anything I'm saying, and we'll look forward to talking with you. Dear God, thank you so much for this lesson we're about to receive. We ask that our minds be open and ready to receive it, that we know specifically in our openness and awareness to you what we are supposed to do as a first, second, third step. And we thank you so much for that kind of clarity and guidance that is now in us. We are reaching it by opening ourselves. These things have always been there, but we get busy. We let our grief, our disappointments, our sadness, and other things get in the way of really hearing what you're having to tell us. So we open ourselves to that right now in these 90 minutes and say thank you. We are very grateful to know more. We ask now that we are in the frame of mind, that we know nothing, that it is the you through us and through all things that know it all, and we make ourselves ready to receive that. We say this in your name, and so it is. And we have this in the name of everyone listening to the show today as well. Thank you, and so it is. So guys, hello. I'm going to first start quoting an article that I found, Why Empathy is the Solution to Loneliness and Narcissism, according to these neurologists. Now, that's the name of the article. I'm sure you can find it. The problem is, I never saw a name, an author for this. So what I'm going to do is quote who they quote, and that is, it says the founder of whatever organization this is Jacob Wachab. He is the co-CEO of, on a Mind Body Green podcast. Okay, so there we are, and this must be just a report on that. One of the things I liked that he said is this, that the cure to narcissism and loneliness, and we've certainly had our share, haven't we, in this 2020-2021 with the quarantine and everything that's going on out there with COVID, that the cure to it is empathy. I absolutely agree with him. Empathy is the key to everything. Certainly, I like this because it falls into my belief system. My belief system, being the ego child's mind, that part of us that still thinks like a child, is fear-based, and we run around trying to prove ourselves and prove that we're lovable by having somebody love us, right? But is that the real key? There's a higher self part of us that is nothing but love. And that is really important, that we live in this higher space, these higher frequencies of our being, where love really is, and that's all we are. And then we find that it's marvelous to receive love, but it's just important to give. And the whole natural procedure of this is to give it and receive it, and give it and receive it. Not give it so you'll receive it. You understand? Good. If you give it so you'll receive it, that falls into the victim, martyr, savior syndrome, you see. We do for others hoping to get, or we hope to elicit some sympathy for them if we are victim and martyr enough. No, guys, I mean, that's all misguided. What we've got to do is open ourselves to be who we really are in our highest selves, which is love. You see? Okay, going back to this article, he mentioned something that I had never heard before, which was wonderful. It's called a disconnection syndrome. And this, for this man, Jacob Wachab, or Wachab, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but bless his heart. What this describes is a society that we've got of narcissism and self-centeredness. We've talked about this before. Don't let anybody be offended when I say we're all narcissists. We are all narcissists in this society. I've never seen anything like it. Technology has certainly helped that, and we have run along with it, you know. The selfies that you see everywhere. There was even a program years ago, a friend of mine bought it, and I thought, oh my God, this is the most narcissistic thing I've ever seen, where you exercised in front of the television and these cartoon figures mirrored what you were doing. Why do we have to have anything like that? Why not look at ourselves and be empathetic? That's the key. Okay. So he goes on to say that isolation has a specific impact on our brains. It does. According to psychologists, the amygdala, which is the mid part of the brain, plays a strong role in this self-centeredness and distancing ourselves from others and making us only interested in ourselves. I would say that's an overactive amygdala in my book. This type of narcissism, he goes on to suggest, and I agree with him, drives loneliness. When you are so self-absorbed, all you're thinking about is your health or your job or the lack of your job or your money or the lack of your money or this, all of that takes the place of standing up, saying, I have been hurt, I've hurt myself, and I need to go on and do something else now. That's power. You're going to hear about that in just a minute. So the thing that this article suggests, and I think it's a marvelous first step, is having empathy for other people. I think that's a really important thing. Empathy is typically defined as a trait that helps others by having the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. Yeah. Have you ever known anyone who cannot be in a discussion? They have to dominate the discussion. They can't hear what the other person is saying. That's a very afraid person. It's somebody who's very afraid to dialogue back and forth and see something through somebody else's eyes. Why isn't it all right that they believe something different? You see, it is. Here's why. Every person walking the planet, all of us, have a right to live and die and believe that influences how we live and die. Ourselves, these things are our rights as individuals. We have a right to live and die the way we choose and believe those things that help us live and die the way we choose. That's a better way of saying it, I think. It's just the way it is. And in that, the acknowledgement that we all have our own soul paths, our own life paths, where we're learning something, whether we believe in learning or in God or not. You see? If God is everything, you just can't get away with it. And God is the light in the dark, so it's the good decisions and the poor decisions. You see? Thank you. Okay. One of the things I want to say about what we just read that he said, empathy to being defined as being able to see through another's eyes, I want to say that when this is practiced from the highest self, this loving part of you, this noble, bigger part of you, the part of you that is more like the God of love. It's not a selfish act. He says it is. I want to say he's missing something here, with all due respect to this man. What he's missing is the two parts of our minds, the two minds that exist within us. We have the ego child's mind, that is the part of us that thinks like a child, and we have the higher self mind, as I said, which is the more loving and more noble mind, the more global mind. So what this comes down to in the end is, if you are going to practice empathy, which mind are you doing it from? Because if you're still doing it, this is me diverging from him, if you're still doing it from the ego child's mind, it is selfish. You want something back, even if you don't want to admit it to yourself. You want something back. The higher mind doesn't want anything back. The higher mind truly wants what's best for all, including, by the way, themselves. It is not a selfish act like the ego child's mind. It is a person who is acting and doing things for one reason and one reason only. You know what that is? Because it's the right thing to do for them and all. It's the right thing to do. So that thing that is selfish in all of us, that starts out as selfishness in the ego child's mind, and dear hearts, nobody escapes it, evolves as you evolve, as you open into deeper levels of consciousness. That evolves into someone who clearly and always wants to do the right thing for all, for themselves and for everyone. This is the ultimate win-win situation, isn't it? It is. We may agree, or we may agree to disagree, but it's still an agreement. Why isn't that all right? It is. So what do we mean by empathy? How do you go about picking up empathy? Well, first of all, you've got to stop these hours of, oh, hello, Sheila. How are you, darling? I'm so glad that you're with us today. You will hear me, those of you on Blog Talk Radio, talking to my friends who are kind enough to write in and say hello and other things. And everybody is tuning in now. I'm so glad. Hi, Kat. I see you up there too, darling. Okay. So how do you go about achieving intimacy? Well, look at where your energy goes in the day. First of all, you've got to stop all the lonely. By the way, you know the difference between being alone and being lonely? And I'm talking about the chronic loneliness that some people have. It is because it's crossed the line into pathology. You all are spending too much time. I'm spending too much time. People are spending too much time thinking of themselves, being alone, doing nothing but what we're talking about right now in narcissism and in your own stuff, you know. We don't need to do that anymore. So part of this is whether you feel like it or not. Why don't you write somebody a love note? Doesn't have to, I'm not talking about an intimate love note. I'm talking about a note of appreciation. Think of one of your friends and just write them an email and say, here's what I think about you, and I think you're the sweetest thing in the world. And one of the talents that you have are these, and I want you to know I see them. That's empathy. That's kindness. It's also not trying to dominate a conversation with someone, but really listening to another person. I've mentioned this before in other shows, but one of my inspirations that I always go back to is to read Pat Conroy. To me, he's such a benchmark for how deep emotions can go, and I'm a writer, so I'm very interested in how he does it and doing it my way, of course, but being inspired by him. Pat Conroy is a marvelous writer, but he is now passed. And I think it was so cute when I was reading some some biographies of him, that they said that he always asked people, tell me a story. What's your story? Give me a story. This is a man who's not afraid of another person's opinion. This is a man who's not going to sit there and argue. He wants to see how another thinks and what he's doing. I think that's extremely important. I was talking to a client of mine the other day who is lucky enough now to have several generations as her client. You know, she has the grandparents and the parents and the children, and she's observing how issues can be passed down. My gosh, you don't see that if you don't ask the stories, if you don't observe, if you're too busy talking, you see. We need to listen. We need to really listen and listen to the stories, listen to the ideas that are different from our own. However painful they may be, by the way, and sometimes they are. I think not forgetting to say thank you is a big part of turning on your empathy too. There's so much to be thankful for, you know. The person that shows you where something is in the grocery store, because that's me, I'm always getting lost, or handing something down because what I inevitably need is on the top shelf. And you may not be able to see this on Facebook Live, and you certainly can't see it on Blog Talk Radio, but I'm little, and everything that I need is up there at the top. It's just kind of crazy. Excuse me, Blog Talk Radio has disappeared, and I'm trying to get it back here. I hope it hadn't gone off the air. We'll see. It's still coming back. Whoops, that's not it. Okay. I have very, very slow internet, as you all well know. There we go. It's back. And it takes a while. Hey, Peter, how are you? Oh, good. I'm so glad. Peter said he's reading My Reading Life by Pat Conroy. You know, I loved that book. And what it did was it made me go back and read all the good writers that he said were so good, you know. And that's one of the ways I found Anne Rivers Siddons, whom I just adore. I write very commercially, but I always love these writers that are very literary. And I think he was the same way. He liked literary writers. So guys, it's very important for you to cultivate compassion. There are a lot of marvelous articles on the internet about cultivating compassion, and I do so strongly say, go read those, okay? Go read those. They're very important for you to start doing. Honeys, I know when something happens to us, when we are grieving, or when we lose a job and are sad, or when we do this or that, when we hear harsh words, I think the perfectly normal thing to do is to mourn that, is to go in and deal with your feelings about that. This is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is too much time alone, too much time thinking of yourself without giving anything. That will not work for you. That's going to result in loneliness and depression. We can't have you do that. I want you to realize that's what's going on. Depression is a lot of times caused, not always, but a lot of times caused by non-movement. Because you see, God, and we are talking about consciousness here, it's all the same, consciousness, God, I'm using it interchangeably, is movement. The whole idea of God is that God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths, always in motion. So if you're stuck, of course that doesn't feel good. Of course you're depressed about that, because you're not in motion. And it becomes very important that you become in motion in your mental body, emotional body, physical body, spiritual body. Why all those bodies? Because God is all those bodies. And because consciousness does not awaken until all those bodies are open. You see, you can say, oh, I know I should exercise, and we know that in the mental body, and that's a nice, safe place because we don't have to go out and exercise there. We can just think about it and beat ourselves up for not exercising, right? Okay. No, guys, we have to move, think new thoughts, feel new feelings, do something different physically in the world, and find new spiritual solutions and ideas, and have your mind, your ego child's mind, challenged so that you may one day have more energy in the spiritual energies. You know, that's what we're doing, isn't it? Is we are rooting up the old plants. It's like a garden, rooting up the things we don't want to grow there. Here's an issue. Here's another one. And letting the things that should go there, like forgiveness and compassion and unconditional love and awe and all these marvelous things that are there, let them have the nutrients, you see? So we don't get away with not doing this by not facing ourselves. And there's another part of this that we want to talk about right now. And that is how to be really responsible for yourself. How to be accountable. You see, whatever you have right now, whether you like it or not, you created. And that is an extremely important thing for us to realize about ourselves. Whatever we've got, we created it. Now, a lot of times if it hurts, or if we are financially poor, something, we go, oh my God, I don't want to believe that. Oh, that's horrible. That means I'm a bad person. Look at what you're doing. You're self-attacking. Stop. This isn't the time for self-attacking. This is the time to get on with things. After we grieve, after we do these things that are normal and natural, it's time to get up. It's time to go do something. It's time to be accountable. And if you created whatever you've got right now, you can create something better for yourself as well when you know how it works. Okay? In another 2 weeks, I'm not going to be here next week, but in another 2 weeks, I'm going to do a show all over again on creating the life you want. I haven't updated that show in a long time. I think we better talk about how to create the life you want, how actually to do it energetically, okay? So tune in 2 weeks from now. But let's talk about this. I found a wonderful quote. This is by an article that I'm about to go into by Leah Njoki, Njoki, if you want to find this article. It's 5 principles highly accountable people live by every day. Now, I'd love to quote here. I strive to excel, advance, and do splendid things with what has been entrusted to me. I love that quote. I strive to excel, advance, and do splendid things with what has been entrusted to me. You guys, you know, we have certain talents and gifts and abilities. We think a certain way, all sorts of things. Guys, I'm slipping down in my chair. I'm having a hard time being up enough today to be seen. I keep seeing myself sink down. Guys, certain things have been entrusted to you. Certain wisdoms, really, beyond the talents and in inspiring the talents. And I want to say those are the things in life that you should make the most of, right? Now that seems like a simple thing to say, and yet we're so busy worrying about other people. We're judging them. We're thinking the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Guys, the way to assure it does not is for you to develop yourself. For you to develop these marvelous gifts yourself. and give them away. Here is the empathy that I'm talking about. Here's the service. Personally, I don't think there's a final word. I'm not talking about serving with resentment like we all have done in the ego child's mind. I'm talking about serving because, well, you've been entrusted with these things and now you'd like to make the world better with them. It's a lovely thing that you have at your disposal. So I hope that you will develop these things and give them away in service. Certainly not at the expense of you, ever. Remember, the highest self creates situations where everybody gets something out of it. Now, that said, everybody may not know that. Everybody may not know that. And that's their right to argue and to be mad about it. That's their right. But you've got to be at a peace in your heart that what you did, what you said, what you feel is the right thing to do, and not motivated by lesser things like anger and resentment. And a lot of times these things are there, and we just don't want to see them until we go on this consciousness journey. Which leads me now to this article, 5 Principles Highly Accountable People Live By Every Day, by Leah Najoki. I love this quote. She starts out with a quote by William H. Johnson. If it is to be, then it's up to me. I like that. I do think it's a little burdensome when you're in the ego child's mind to think that, though. So put that aside for later, if you're reacting to it. She goes on to say, highly accountable people are really rare to find. This is such an instantaneous society, isn't it? Hello, Michelle. Oh, yes. Hello, darling. And all hellos to my Canadian friends. You all mean a lot to me. This is a society that likes instant gratification. I think I would say it doesn't even require instant gratification. It wants instant pleasure. It's a little different from gratification the way I understand the word. We, to deal with life, because that's not a realistic way of looking at it, what we do is we avoid. There's something actually called the avoidant personality disorder. And this is the avoidance of things that hurt or that you'll fail at or that don't give you any kind of pleasure. She says that we avoid walking the hot coals of personal responsibility. So we resort to shifting blame, which is what I was referring to earlier, when we are more concerned about chastising and blaming others and shaming others than we are about what we're doing. That's a problem. She says we don't know what we stand for. That's true. We don't. That's why I encourage you all the time to say, go back and look at that value sheet and try to live by that value sheet. Okay. In striving to be accountable, she comes up with 5, I think, very important principles. Let's put them on the table now. Number 1, they keep their power by facing harsh truths. Wow. Now, in all of these articles, in the articles that I write, or in articles that anybody writes, little articles, see, you can't say everything that's going on in an article. Now, when I look at that statement, I go, absolutely, responsible people, accountable people, keep their power by facing harsh truths. And then I remember some clients that I've had in the past And they are so harsh to themselves, they practically destroy themselves with harshness. These are people that I have a different rule for, okay, which is to stop giving themselves away, which is to find that depth of talent and ability and develop it, and then honor the world with its presence. These are people that I would say, you're not considering yourself, and you need to learn to do that, and much more. But I want to stick with what we're talking about right now. They keep their power by facing harsh truths in terms of accountability. Highly accountable people know that shifting blame makes one a victim and keeps them stuck. It's absolutely true. When it's all about somebody else, you're never looking at you. You're never learning anything about this from you. All right? But facing the truth makes them powerful, even if the truth is harsh. Even if you have to say, look at what I did. Oh, I shouldn't have opened my mouth that way. I shouldn't have done that. I think that is so important. Facing something like that gives you autonomy, because you recognize that your life is unfolding because of your own choices. Because of your own choices. Many times we make these choices out of the ego's child's mind and out of old patterns, you see. And they're not conscious. And you remember that in psychology, your mind, your ego child's mind, plays a trick on you. It makes good things bad and bad things good. So, for example, now this is just a common example, but I see it a lot. So if someone comes to me and they're just a mass of issues, and they're very obvious, and they're easy to lift off, but for one thing, every time you try to talk to them about it and confront them and tell them the kind of energy work you're about to do on them, they go, oh, you're scolding me. Don't scold. I hear my mother scolding me. My father scolding me. It's like, I'm not scolding you. I'm saying we've got to get these things. It's a game, isn't it, in essence? It's like, don't hurt me. Oh, you're hurting me. You can't do that. Well, how are you going to do anything if you don't? We got to go past the silliness. You came here to fix what needs to be fixed. Now let's do it, right? But what we have to do in situations like that, we have to stop, and we have to fix this drama, okay? This way they keep people from changing them, because we see that they really don't want to, they do want to change over time. People who don't want to change go away. People who do want to change stay. No matter the games they play. We know them all. We've done them all. Okay, just an example. So they're making healing bad and drama good. Guys, that's just simply no way to live. If you have been blessed with drama, put it on the page, put it on the screen, put it on the canvas, put it as a design in your gardens. Cook with drama and flair, but don't have it in your lives. Drama in your life is a problem. And here's the thing, it won't let you see the real problem, because you're up there flipping around and all this kind of stuff. And people that are dramatic like that, we call it the histrionic personality, never go down and get their real feelings. The point of all the drama is to not go down there and feel anything, even though they look like they're feeling anything and trying to convince themselves and the world that they are. Come on. It's all a game. And you do have to have somebody call you on your games. It's just true. May you find somebody loving to call you on your games. Because it's in your best interest to be called. You see? Okay. She says, thinking this way that you must face your harsher truths is liberating. And it is. It's liberating in a sense that I want to put on the table, which is this. If God is everything, the light and the dark, the good and the bad, the prosperous and the poor, and the everything else, and we have that duality, you're everything too. Your enormous fear and your enormous love and grace. You're everything. If we judge what we've done, if we push away past actions and what we've said and what we've done and what we've created in the past, and we call ourselves all sorts of terrible names like weak and failures and all the things that we can say, which are lies, we never get liberated. Liberated into the fact of the way the energy really works. I created all. You created all. We're writing the script based on past assumptions, past appearances that probably isn't valid anymore. And the end of that script has already been written. And if we want a different outcome, we need to have a different script. That means thinking differently, feeling differently, doing different things, and having different spiritual thought. It's a journey you go on to find these things. And we're on this together, which I'm very honored that we are. She goes on to say, if your past actions led you to this moment, isn't it powerful to know that you hold the keys to the kind of future you want? In other words, what she's saying is, well, you created this. Why can't you create something else? You can. You certainly can. And you can create more. Again, in 2 weeks, we talk all about this. There is a freedom that comes with you taking responsibility for your choices, because if you don't, what you're trying to do is blame yourself. You're blaming yourself. Now, here's the thing. You may not consciously know you're blaming yourself, but the life is going to reflect that you're blaming yourself and shaming yourself for your actions. There's no reason to do that, guys. There's a reason to mourn, to see what you did, to go, to learn from whatever it is. And to go, okay, what got me into this trouble? What old lessons from the past did I bring forward and try to impose them on the present? What do I want to look at now? How am I going to live differently? But let me tell you, you don't live differently without analyzing the past, because there is an intelligence in your body that says, go down there and find out what this is and resolve it in some way. That's how you're free. It isn't by avoiding looking at this or denying that it even happened or who you are in this or who you were. It is in the actual taking of responsibility of it, of saying, yeah, that's the way I used to be. You see, one of the things that people square off against, they square off against it a lot. Now, I have a hard time understanding this, quite frankly, because it's our humanness. And a human is capable of everything. The light and the dark to the extremes. We're human. Now, in terms of consciousness, I think the human experience is extremely important, and we've got to make our peace with it. Because I think the whole Trinity that St. Patrick talked about, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, The Father being the inner Father that you are. The Holy Ghost being everything that's God out here. The tree, the dog at your feet, the flowers that are sitting on your desk, the computer, everything that is not you is still God. And that's the Holy Ghost. But hi, Keisha. Oh, honey, I'm so glad that you tuned in. I haven't talked to you in a long time. I hope you're doing well. I want you to realize that the thing that unites the inner experience with the outer experience of God is your humanness, is you, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, the human experience. The Son being a statement for mankind. Okay? A word for that. So, what are we doing pushing these energies away? We're human. We make mistakes. We have made plenty of them in my case. Oh, aren't you sweet, Keisha? You're dear. We're doing all right. We're doing fine. Little Roxanne is ill, but other than that, we are all fine, and Tracy's fine. I love to talk to my dear friends I haven't seen in a long time on this show. All right. You all understand, I hope, what I'm getting to. If all this energy is God and you're pushing elements of yourself away because they're, and I put in quotes, bad, or they are weak, or they're this, or whatever you've judged them to be, we need to face the harsh reality that, of course, you are those things. When somebody comes to me, and they sometimes get a different surprise because they say, oh, I feel like I'm, a big liar. I feel like I'm a big this, a big that. Oh, I'm weak and I'm this. And I say, well, of course you are. Yeah, so am I. So what? That's the ego child's mind. That's the human part of us. And here's the irony. Because a lot of things that we so want on a higher level are hidden in the human experience. They're hidden there because they are the undeveloped energy of that. You see, I said selfishness is just the undeveloped energy of doing the right thing, right? For yourself and for others, which is the higher energy, but it starts out as that. Well, everything starts out in the ego child's mind. And we have so many misperceptions about ourselves. Nobody listening to the show, nobody out there is a bad person that came out of the womb bad and hateful and awful. No, you did not. But things change, must change. We must become emotionally mature as we age. We must be able to face the fact that we've done things that are not desirable and in some cases bad, but that was an incident that we did. It isn't a pronouncement on our lives, and only by owning that do we go, I don't want to be that anymore. I'm going to choose differently. Only by owning that, you see? Not by ignoring it. The reason consciousness studies work, consciousness studies based in reality like this and looking at what you've done and who you are and your misconceptions about it all, is because too much energy is trapped in the emotional body. There is more energy there that shouldn't be, like resentment of my mother and sister for being mean to me. That energy must be resolved and ultimately released by getting to some bottom lines. And what are the bottom lines? The bottom line is not that they were evil. The bottom line is what you did with it. It's always what you did with it. You understand? And we change our perception of things. We see people more globally. And how you do that is not to be in the ego child's mind anymore that needs that mother and sister to take care of them, but to realize that they were damaged people and that you can take care of yourself. Now we're talking about something that's based on true accountability, and you can go on and have quite a wonderful life from that. Number 2. She goes on to say, and I do want to put this on the table, instead of the highest self and what we just put on the table, she says most people stumble at the sight of their problems. Excuses become their norm, and valuable time gets wasted hoping for things to get better. Yeah, that's the thing that we see a lot of times. We stumble at the sight of our own problems. We make excuses for ourselves instead of saying, I did it. Let's find out why I did it so I don't have to do that again. Okay. I had a woman years ago who cut herself. And I said, well, let's find out why you're doing that. And she said, what's the point? I'm just going to cut myself again and again. Life is just going to hurt me again and again, and I cut myself to deal with it. And I said, well, we've got to find out why that's happening, why you are submitting to that, why you're allowing it. Because what my job is not to put a Band-Aid over that cut, whatever the recent one is, but to find out why you are cutting yourself and what you can't cope with. And what kind of thinking creates your thinking you can't cope with it when you're a beautiful, talented adult. Number 2, people that are accountable tap into the power of their problems. She goes on to say that there are 2 types of problems in life, painful and powerful problems. She goes on to say a painful problem leaves you desperate, out of control, with no ability to solve it. It takes away your power. But a powerful problem enlarges you. It forces you to push your boundaries, improve yourself, and become better. You know, I think instead of saying there are 2 kinds of problems in life, I think there are 2 minds. And how you deal with a problem has to do with what mind you're in. So I would say it a little differently here. People who are in the higher mind find ways to learn about what has happened. It enlarges them, it helps them think bigger, it forces them beyond their boundaries, it improves them, they become better. People in the child's mind wallow in their pain, they actually indulge in it after a certain point. It leaves them desperate, out of control, no ability to solve it. They might develop control problems because they want to control everything, and nothing can be controlled. This is silly. Life is an improvisation, isn't it? Okay. So she says highly accountable people turn their problems into tools of power. When faced with a problem, they don't just sit and, she says, think about it. I say ruminate about it, because ruminate implies you're doing a little too much thinking about it. They begin working on it, even if they don't know what they're doing. I think you've got to have the semblance of a plan, you know. I know as a writer, I start out as what they call a pantser, by the seat of your pants. You know, you sit down, you go, I have no idea where I'm going, but let's just start. Okay. By the end of the writing cycle and all the drafts that happen, you bet I am a plotter. I am looking at everything down to the words I'm saying and the phrases I use, and it becomes very specific. I think you have to be both. I don't think we get away in the world with not being both. So while you might have the freedom of mind, at one point you got to get pretty realistic about what you're doing. Both of them are good, and both of them can be talents of yours that you develop. She goes on to say, I think this is a quote from somebody else. Who is this? You can find it certainly in her article. I think this was just a client of hers. She said that he said, every problem has a lesson to be unearthed. I use it to empower myself. Oh, and that's a really good statement to me. In other words, let's put it a different way. Everything's a gift. Even a failure is a gift. Yeah, really. What'd you learn from it? But if you plunge right back into doing it again and haven't thought through, if you're not willing to change as you go and adapt and see, you know, if I put out an ad or something like that and I'm not getting the response I get, I go back and rework it. We have to keep reworking things until we get the response we want sometimes. We've got to learn and look for and identify the gifts in even sad situations. There are gifts in everything. I mean, I was just thinking about a friend of mine who passed away recently, but he gave me so many gifts. Not just the work we did together, but knowing him was a gift. He was in his higher self all the time. And what's dear about that is I went to high school with him, and he wasn't always in his higher self then, but he made choices as he grew up that made him dear to everybody that knew him. He's a really good one for me to think about when I think of every problem has a lesson to be unearthed. Yeah. Life, she goes on to say, is about not knowing what we're doing and still doing what needs to be done without allowing problems to hold you back. I would say it a different way. Here's what I would say. At one point, you must realize that nobody is holding you back. It's your way of thinking that's holding you back. And you better find out some of those deeper and deeper and deeper ways you have everything put together in your child's mind. Because that's where the sticking point is. And that's how to tap into, I mean, in a larger sense, this point number 2, they tap into the power of their problems. Find out what your issues are. Let's resolve them. Where do you think that energy goes? That energy that you have of hate or trying to control things, of this, of that. Where do you think it goes? Of unforgiveness. Where do you think it goes? Well, when it is absolutely resolved on the deepest level of your being, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, the energy rushes from the emotional body right to the spiritual body. And this is how people wake up in consciousness. this is how it happens. It's a glorious gift, the way this system is set up. Number 3, they embrace pain as a necessary component for growth. I think this is a really important one. I know clients of mine who have, as a child, resolved to never hurt again. Boy, is that fantasy. And fantasy is its own reward, as you know. We're all going to hurt. This person that I'm talking to, I love with all my heart. She doesn't ever want to hurt again. She's not resolved to pain. She is not going to be in pain, but she wants a relationship. Guys, that ain't going to work out. Relationships hurt from time to time. They do. They're supposed to. You're supposed to find out the unloving places inside you, release those in love more deeply. You can't avoid pain in life. And you are going to have to, as an access key, get comfortable with feeling pain. Now, my job as a counselor is to help you make good decisions so that we can minimize that pain. But one of my jobs as well is to get you comfortable with feeling it and knowing it's not going to kill you so we can learn something from it if it inevitably happens. People die. People lose their jobs. People downsize. You're supposed to, people steal from other people. You're supposed to create something better. Come on, guys. Pain is a necessary component of growth. And you can, I'll give you 2 days to feel like hell, 3 days. And then we got to start putting you back together again, okay? Oh, hello, Judy. I'm sorry I keep freezing up. There's nothing I can do about that, but I'm glad that you're telling me that. I certainly don't like to keep freezing, and I hope the sound is continuing no matter what, because it isn't seeing my old ugly mug that's imported every week. It is hearing the lesson and understanding it for you. But thanks for telling me. I appreciate that. We are up here in the mountains. It is rather remote, and we do not have good internet speed. It prevents us from seeing television and not getting radio and all those things. It is a problem. We keep talking to people about it, but so far they haven't run any of the important wires out here, you know. She goes on to say about this subject, we're taught to avoid pain and any negative feelings. You may have been punished for having them when you were little. Or told to, you know, bought a lollipop, let's distract you from your crying fit. Your mother and dad could have been embarrassed. Well, thank you, darling. Thank you for telling that. And Judy says the sound is still going on. That's great. Thank you. In my advanced classes, we do them on Skype. And sometimes when it freezes up, what we have to do is say, okay, just cut the video off so the sound can continue somehow. Then it's not divided. I don't know what to say about that in this case, but well, let's just do the best we can. You know, I got the greatest clients in the world. All of you all are so kind and put up with bad reception sometimes. So we are taught to avoid pain and negative feelings. Our parents might not have been able to handle our tantrum well. We may have been punished for expressing ourselves. The parents may have not handled things well because they themselves were embarrassed, and they were in their mind criticizing themselves for being bad parents and don't want that to show to the public. We would have been handed a lollipop had we been crying to distract ourselves. We might not have been even listened to express any negative feelings or anger when we were kids. We're told to stay positive and smile no matter what. And that was a terrific injustice that we were taught. Feeling good all the time is not realistic. She says that, I say that. And trying to feel good all the time sometimes creates a life pattern that I often work with people, which is the seeker to feel good. It's somebody who runs to a good feeling after another, and they're creating these things so they have something. But here's the thing. The problem never gets fixed because they won't look at it. They're too busy running. And they're sacrificing their overall happiness, if they got it fixed, for that momentary little blip of feeling better. I'm much more interested in you all having happy lives overall than having a blip here and there of happiness. If you are constantly running to feel good, or you are denying how you really feel, it keeps you from zooming in on the state of your life and asking the really hard questions. And you should be asking yourself the really hard questions. One of the things I do in my advanced class with people is I ask them questions that nobody ever has asked them before. I seek to help them with that. It's very effective. Adversity and failure are not only useful, but are extremely necessary for an accountable and successful life. I agree with that. Accountable people gauge their self-worth based on how they feel about their negative aspects. Now, I think that's brilliant. And let's put that in terms that you can understand a little more. I've taught you all about primary and secondary emotions. I think we talked about it as recently as last week. Primary and secondary emotions. This is a big key to what we're talking about right now, is defining what your primary emotion is and standing in the primary, allowing yourself the primaries, not the secondaries. Secondaries are always ego, child's mind. Primaries might be some ego, child's mind, higher self mind, and it's always action oriented. For example, let's say you had a fender bender, okay? You had a fender bender, so what would you feel? I'd feel, if I was the cause of it, I'd feel pretty dumb to look down at the radio and run into this woman. I'd be certainly, for the first part, I would be concerned that everybody was all right. Yep. And then I would probably say, well, that was pretty stupid, you know. Here's the key. In this one instance, it was pretty stupid. Am I stupid? I'm certainly not stupid. Neither are you. In this one instance, I made a mistake. Bad mistake. Gonna pay for it. I did it. All right? That's primary emotion. And it propels you to say, well, we get on with it. Let's exchange the insurance information. Let's get on with this. I'll call my insurance company when I get home. We have to go get the car fixed. We have to get their car fixed. That'll be taken care of. That's all primary stuff. Secondary emotion is, I always do this. I'm the stupidest person on the planet. I never think. I never pay attention. I can't believe I did that. Oh, I hate it. I just hate it. I'm going to have the radio taken out of my car. I can't believe I did that. I'm always doing the stupidest things. I could have killed them. I could have killed me. Oh my God, it could have been so much worse. I am such a bad person. Guys, drama isn't good. It is the little girl, little boy of you running with scissors. And that secondary emotion has got to stop. In my work, we call this layering. You layer emotions that are inappropriate on top of emotions that are inappropriate. You had an accident this day, God forbid, I'm just making this up now, August 15th of 2021 at 10:30 in the morning, and there wasn't a lot of damage done, and that's the truth. It stops right there. One thing that you did. Don't do it again. You don't have to take out your radio out of your car. A lot of people do that kind of thing. They overreact. Take my radio out of my car. I'm going to never drive again. No, you just don't look down. You are responsible for how you do this. Don't make a federal case out of it, right? Relationships, she goes on to say, heal through difficult, heart-wrenching, and gut-pouring conversations. I say everything heals. Whether you're having a relationship talk with your dear significant other, or whether you are having a talk with your therapist, honesty really pays off here. Pain and adversity are essential for personal growth. You learn from them, dear hearts. And the interesting thing is, the more you go into consciousness and see why you do the things you do, what is motivating you to do the things you do, these things tend to disappear. One of my darling friends, and I haven't seen her tune in this week, but one of my darling friends had an experience like this. She could tell you. She was here last week, but I don't think she's here. She came to me years ago and she said, every 2 years I have an accident. And in my accident, I am almost killed in my car. And I'm due another one. And that's why I'm coming to you. I don't want this to happen again. I jumped on that one, right? And we worked on it and worked on it. And several months later, she came into her session and she was just mad as she could be. She says she was furious. Somebody had keyed her car. And so I went out with her and we looked at the car. And I didn't know why. I said, well, let's go look at the car. But all of a sudden, when I saw the keyed car, Spirit told me, well, there's her accident. That's the access key that's left. Let's get that. So we went inside and we did. Things diminish once you start working on yourself. These things don't have to be the alarming bells that there's something to get there, that they once were. Start to work. Okay. Number 4, she goes on to say that they set their own standards. Accountable people set their own standards and use them as a guide. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so important. This is why I say, know what your values are. And it's not just a question of not doing some research, like I'm saying, because it's really important for us to say, oh, I have honesty as my value. I have this as my value. I have that as my value. And you're not thinking things through there. I want you to have a list in front of you. I want you to say, what are the values? I'm just going to choose 3. And I'm only suggesting you choose 3 because you can get your mind around 3, not a dozen. Choose 3 to start with. You're going to have all of them in the end, but choose 3 to start with. 3 that you already are 99.9% of the time. And make sure that you are not betraying yourself by giving up those values. That's giving up your power. That's giving up who you are. That's abandoning yourself. If you do. Live with those 3 for a month to 6 weeks, and let's see how well you do. They are the essential you. Who are you? Those are your standards. You use them as your guide about how you respond, how you think, what you say, what you do. Really important. She says we compare ourselves and live lives that are in competition with other people. We're trying to be them, keep up with them, look as good as them, right? Make sure that they don't have more than we do. She says, no wonder we're so frustrated, unsatisfied, and unhappy with our existence. Accountable people make a different choice here. Rather than engaging in the comparison game, they establish their set of values, there's the word again, and use them to guide their lives. Rarely do you see an accountable person breaking a commitment, violating a promise, behaving rudely, or not acting according to expectations. Why? Because they've got the integrity to perform per their values. That's what we're saying here. You must be in the energy of your values and use them in every interaction you have. Being committed to specific values gives accountable people freedom from other trivialities. Oh, yeah. It helps them focus and perform excellently, putting them on a winning side. I don't know what she says by that, but it certainly puts you on the highest self side, which is a winning side. She says they've got this self-assuredness vibe that keeps them minding their own business and not worrying about other people. I think that is beautiful, and I think that's really important. Accountable people have values and live from them. Certainly, we all step out of that from time to time. But consciousness is knowing what you did, how badly you feel if you've stepped out of this, is whether you have broken one value, betrayed one value, two values, or three values. You see, your values are your boundaries. And so, don't beat yourself up about it. You're human. Okay, here's that word again. Certainly forgive yourself, apologize, but make sure that they're in place next time. That's the value of letting yourself down from time to time, seeing what you did, right? But if we are going to be a drama queen about it, oh, I did this, oh, I'm such a bad person, you never get to learning what you needed to do, what your triggers were that made you cross your boundaries there, for example. Number 5, they leave the uncertainty door open. Now, we have talked about, and we have talked a lot about this, but we have talked about you have to be okay, tolerant of uncertainty. This is what our world is really demanding right now. It is going to be this way for the rest of your life, no matter how old you are, darlings. There's an old adage that says the man who believes he knows everything learns nothing. And we must not believe we know everything. That's why we give up knowing when we do these morning sessions on Sunday morning. We have to give up knowing that the God in all of us can work through us and help us with the specific knowing that we need at the time. We can never ever really be sure of what's certain, and yet we're all so hung up on that because we're trying to keep ourselves safe, and you are safe. Nothing's happening to you right now. You're sitting in your home. Hopefully you're drinking a cup of coffee or tea, and you're having a nice breakfast, and you're listening to this. God bless you, and you're fine. You're fine. In this moment, you're fine. In every moment, you will find out you're fine when you go past the drama and the upset. God is the drama and the upset. Do you understand that? And if you haven't gotten what you want, it's not the end. Because everyone who is in this energy gets what they want in the end. If it's from the higher self, yes. So guys, it's an easier world than we make it. We must, though, get comfortable with uncertainty by focusing on this moment of God. This moment is sacred. It will never come again. Do you realize that? Whatever I'm saying to you in this exact moment, you sitting there in those exact clothes and that exact underwear, Michael and I always tease about that, in that exact place with the exact configuration and your feelings that are up right now, that will never come again. There will never be another moment like this. Make sure it's a sacred one for you. Make sure that you invest in that instead of the uncertainty of all of life, trying to project beyond this moment of connection with God and grace and you. All the same thing, by the way. Okay. We have to extricate, she goes on to say, ourselves from the I know mentality and I'm nothing if I don't know mentality. This is crazy. We have to be open to this moment and discovering new things in this moment. What does God have to tell us now? And if God is silent, proceed as usual. That's all. Accountability is the willingness to take responsibility for every choice you make. I think it's marvelous, and it's not part of the ego child's mind mentality. Children don't have to do that. They don't make good choices, and if they make a choice, it's not generally a good one. Sometimes they don't make any choices at all, and that is, by the way, that was Schnitzel, who decided he would show himself on the camera, at least part of his little whiskery face. What a life. Anyway, we have to do our due diligence. We have to use our innate intelligences. We have to get all the old stuff out of the way and sweep it away. Not by not looking at it, but by looking at it and cleaning the room, picking it up, tossing it out. Deciding who you are deep down inside. It's not a mental decision. It is let's get ourselves out of the way of that wonderful, authentic person and let her emerge, let him emerge. Now we got it, okay? Now we've got real happiness. Don't be afraid to, dears, to take those natural gifts and abilities and learn all you can about them. All you can. Because that's what has been entrusted to you. And that's your wisdom. And that's your contribution. And that's the happy life. Okay? I hope you have a marvelous week. I won't be here next week, but I will the following. So I will write that down. We're going to talk about creating the life you want. All right? Let's do a quick prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for the opportunity to be together today, for our opening ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do with this information. Accept our humanness as us. This is what we are asking ourselves for right now. That it opens the door to our divinity. Thank you, Sheila. That it opens the door to our divinity where we think and see and perform on deeper and more powerful levels. We thank you so much for all of this, dear God, and we say this now in your name. In the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of everybody listening to this show today. And so it is. Amen. Guys, have a good one. Take care out there. Thank you, Judy. God bless you all. Bye-bye.